Russia and Ukraine failed to make a breakthrough in their first top-level talks since Moscow's invasion 2 weeks ago, as Russian advances sparked fears the Ukrainian capital Kyiv could soon be encircled. After talks with Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Turkey on Thursday, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba said there had been no progress, even on a 24-hour ceasefire, although Mr. Lavrov said Moscow would keep talking. Russian forces were encircling at least 4 major cities in Ukraine on Thursday, with armored vehicles rolling up to the northeastern edge of the capital Kyiv. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said half the population, nearly 2 million people, had fled, adding that the city has been transformed into a fortress. Every street, every building, every checkpoint has been fortified. Barricades in front of the Maidan Square in Kyiv, Ukraine, on the 10th of March 2022. Source: EPA, AAP Miguel A. Lopez. The besieged southern port city of Mariupol meanwhile came under fresh attack, the day after the ing of a children's hospital that local officials said 3 people, including a young girl. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it was a Russian war crime, a position backed by top European Union officials. United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the intensifying targeting of civilians could see Washington and its European allies step up already unprecedented sanctions on Moscow. The Russian army, however, claimed the hospitaling was a staged provocation by Ukraine. At least 35,000 civilians were evacuated from the cities of Sumy, Enohoda, and areas around Kyiv on Wednesday, Mr. Zelensky said. Around 2,000 more people left the eastern city of Izium on Thursday, the deputy head of Mr. Zelensky's office, Kirilo Tymoshenko, wrote on Telegram. Firefighters walked past a damaged by shelling building in Mariupol, Ukraine, on Thursday, the 10th of March 2022. Source: AAP Evgeny Maloletka. The situation in Mariupol is particularly dire, with 10 days of constant attacks having left more than 1,200 civilians, according to the mayor. The UN estimates more than 2.3 million refugees have left Ukraine since Russia shocked the world by invading its pro-Western neighbor on the 24th of February. Barbaric hospital attack. The White House slammed the barbaric use of force against civilians, while EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell echoed Mr. Zelensky in calling the hospital attack a heinous war crime. Overall, at least 71 children have been in Ukraine since the start of the war, and more than 100 have been wounded, said Lyudmila Denisova, the Ukraine Parliament's point person on human rights. Mr. Zelensky shared footage on Wednesday of massive destruction at the hospital, saying the direct strike by Russian troops had left children under the wreckage. The United Nations said that 2 other Ukrainian maternity hospitals had been attacked and destroyed before the strike on Mariupol. Ukrainian emergency employees and volunteers carry an injured pregnant woman from the maternity hospital in Mariupol, Ukraine, which was damaged by shelling. Source: AAP. The city council reported new Russian air attacks on Thursday on residential buildings in Mariupol, which aid agencies say is facing an apocalyptic situation, with no water, power, or heat for more than a week. The capture of Mariupol would allow Russia to link up pro-Moscow enclaves in the east and the Russian-annexed Crimea to the southwest. Russia's foreign ministry on Wednesday did not deny the attack on the hospital, but accused Ukrainian nationalist battalions of using it to set up firing positions after moving out staff and patients. Mr. Lavrov reiterated the claim on Thursday, but Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov then put the blame on Kyiv. The Russian aviation carried out absolutely no missions to hit targets on the ground in the Mariupol area, Konashenkov said. The airstrike that allegedly took place is a completely staged provocation to maintain anti-Russian hype for a Western audience. Ukrainian refugees who have entered Poland in Medica set off on trains at the railway station to reach other cities in Poland. Source: Press Association, AAP Salvatore Laporta. Asked by a Turkish reporter if Russia was planning to attack other nations, Mr. Lavrov replied, "We don't plan to attack other countries, and claimed, "We did not attack Ukraine." He insisted that Russian President Vladimir Putin launched the operation, as the situation in Ukraine posed a direct threat to the Russian Federation. Nowhere to run. On the northeastern edge of Kyiv, Ukrainian soldiers described a night of heavy battles for control of the main highway leading into the capital. A team from news agency AFP witnessed missile strikes in Velika Dymerka, a village just outside Kyiv's city limits. Ukrainian forces only had a minimal presence in the village, which locals said witnessed heavy fighting overnight. "It's frightening, but what can you do? There is nowhere to really run or hide. We live here," said Vasil Popov, a 38-year-old advertising salesman. Residents coming from Bucha town, which is currently controlled by the Russian military, walk with luggage towards the Ukrainian checkpoint at the front line in Irpin town, Kyiv region, Ukraine, on the 10th of March 2022. Source: EPA, AAP Roman Pilapi. Across Ukraine, the invasion has so far destroyed about $100 billion in roads, bridges and businesses, said Oleg Ustenko, chief economic advisor to Zelensky. The conflict has raised fears of a nuclear accident in a country with major nuclear plants and the site of the Chernobyl disaster. The UN's atomic watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, said Wednesday it saw no critical impact on safety at Chernobyl, location of the world's worst nuclear disaster in 1986, after a loss of power there. But it warned it was not receiving updates from either Chernobyl or Zaporizhzhia, Europe's largest nuclear plant, which is also now under Russian control. The United States meanwhile rejected Russian claims that it was involved in bioweapons research in Ukraine, and warned Russia could be preparing to use chemical or biological weapons in the war, creating a colossal danger for themselves. Washington has strongly backed Ukraine, leading the push for tough international sanctions and sending weapons and other aid. But it has ruled out enforcing a no-fly zone and rejected a Polish plan to transfer fighter jets via a U.S. airbase for fear of being drawn into the conflict directly. On Thursday, Mr. Lavrov said the supply by the EU and other countries of live weapons to Ukraine was creating a colossal danger for themselves. The U.S. House of Representatives greenlit a spending package, including nearly $14 billion for Ukraine and allies in Eastern Europe, which must be rubber-stamped by the Senate. The International Monetary Fund has meanwhile approved a $1.4 billion emergency package for Kyiv to provide critical financial support. The US this week imposed a ban on Russian imports of oil and gas, a move followed by Canada, and a pledge from London to end the imports within the year. Britain urged the entire G7 to follow suit, but some nations are wary, with Germany and Italy both dependent on Russian energy. Putin on Thursday said Moscow was continuing to export oil and gas, including through Ukraine. But he warned food prices will soar because of sanctions since Moscow is one of the world's top fertilizer producers.